This is Making Light. Julie Hurt and Kate Foggo are soul-level intuitives and animal communicators. This show is about us sharing our experiences in the hope it will help others along their path. So let's go make some light. Hello everybody, I'm Kate Foggo. This is Julie Hurt, and together we are making light, which is very clever if you think about it. So Julie and I are both animal communicators, intuitives. We are both certified at Danielle, MacKinnon School of Animal Communication, I suppose it is it?
Well, there's intuitive coaching too. So
yeah,
I know.
So we're both certified in that. We're both, and that is what we do. So what we do here is we talk about stuff that comes up in the animal world and also in the intuitive work in general with each other, and stuff that comes up and how we navigate that as humans. And intuitives. So in theory, we have a lot more resources at our fingertips to help us through, but ultimately we go through the same shit everyone else does.
Key phrase, at our fingertips. Do we use them?
Well, yeah, sometimes. So we just talk about the things that we navigate in the hope that you will feel that you are not only not alone, but also maybe some of the things we come up with, you can apply them better than we can. Right. So I had an incident this week. Julie, I don't know if you saw on Instagram, my beautiful 5 barn swallows. So this year we've got a balcony. So we've got this, I don't think it's not a veranda. I suppose it's a balcony upstairs above us outside the living room. Great, fucking amazing. It's got like glass sides and everything. It's absolutely brilliant. Scotland never been out on it ever, right? Apart from to pick up dead animals or to save birds that get trapped there. Never go out there, never, ever. I mean, I go out there and take photos, but it's not like we ever sit out there because it's in Scotland. But anyway, it's lovely. But the nice thing about it is there's like a carport underneath it, and there's rafters there, and the barn swallows have nested there every year since we've been there, and we always get at least 2 litters. I don't know what they're called, clutches.
Yeah.
This year they fannied around, they started and then they stopped, and they started and they stopped, and it's actually right where we walk out. So I'm always really worried, if Gary's going in and out dealing with the cars and that, I'm like, you need to shut the door, can't disturb them. So they started, and then he went out and washed the car, and they stopped, but they persisted, and poof, out of nowhere we have 5 beautiful bouncing baby birds, absolutely bristling. I mean, I can't believe how big they got. And then 3 days later, I think they started. So one of them actually fell out the nest, and this had happened before, and I had phoned the animal rescue place here, and they'd come to see what they could do. We'd had it in a box and everything, and then she said, have you tried putting it back? And I was like, I didn't know that. I didn't know you could do that. Apparently you can. So we actually just put it back in. I did actually damage Gary's car at the time because I dropped the ladder on his car in doing that. So this year, hello darling, this year when one of them fell out the nest, I was like, Gary, you need to come and hold the ladder so I don't damage your car. And I put it back, and it actually flew back onto my shoulder, but it couldn't fly off the ground. So if they come out the nest too soon, they don't have the strength to lift off. Come on, Gary, look, mommy's busy, right?
He's here for support.
So I thought, all right, okay. So there was a baby on the ground, and I thought I have to put it back because obviously we have a cat. So it's not, I think the parents will actually feed it if it's on the ground, but it's not safe for it to be there. So I tried to put it back. It jumped out, it flew down onto my shoulder. I managed to put it back. Anyway, job done, fine. So I keep checking out, are all 5 in the nest? Yes, fine. And then there could only see 3 faces, and then there was only 2 faces, and then there was no faces, but they do roost under there. At least for some time. So, and I was looking, there was only 4. So I knew they were all out of the nest, but there was only 4 little faces. So I said to Gary, I think there's a dead one up there. And he went up and had a look. Sorry.
Don't apologize, she's here for a reason.
I want to join in a bit. So he got it out, and yes, it was there. So looking back on the photo that I had taken, it had died very recently because I had the photo 3 days ago, and then they were gone. So it happened in that time. So they're quite big. so I think that's quite unusual at that age for them to be trampled underfoot or to starve to death. Or I also know that although the nest is overflowing with 5 of them, they have successfully raised several clutches there with 5. So I'm just curious, Julie. I don't know why I'm telling you all the technical stuff. It doesn't really matter, does it? But I'm just wondering if there's, if our interaction with animals, that every single interaction is a lesson for us. I was just wondering what the lesson. I don't feel bad about putting a bird back because it would have died had we left it on the ground. So this is not a guilt thing. There's more curiosity about what happened to this bird. What am I supposed to learn from that? And actually, just what happened, because one minute it was there, and the next minute, I know we don't like to think of it, but I know the weakest ones often get trampled. But I mean, they were 2 days from leaving the nest. It seems unlikely that any of them were that weak. Don't know.
So just so I'm clear, the bird that died is the one that fell out of the nest. You're sure? Okay.
No idea. Okay. I would think not, because I would have thought that was probably the first one out the nest.
Yeah. Okay.
Stronger, but I don't know. Okay.
So once you saw the baby bird out of the nest and put it back, you did see all 5 babies.
I think so. I can't be absolutely sure.
Oh, but you had so the picture of all 5 with their heads?
Yes.
After you put it back in the nest or before?
No, pass. Don't know.
Okay.
Because it would literally been within 24 hours, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
But it was literally 3 days before I know there was only 4. I had that picture, so it obviously happened very recently.
Okay. So I was just kind of double checking in with energies. It feels more like energies of the whole situation and where to connect. And we're coming back to the connect with the swallow that passed, that one specifically. So then we can figure out, or we can see if they'll help us understand what all happened. Okay. And then see what lesson it has for you. Right. Okay. All right. So baby swallow in Scotland under Kate's deck that passed away. So I get this whole, like, I'm going to say download. We were just talking about this before camera that, we get downloads or knowings, and I am working right now on trust, and I'm trusting these huge things that come in, because I'm used to seeing, hearing, and like smaller bits of data, and these are bigger bits, and woof, anywho. So I actually, when I connected with the baby swallow that passed, I get male masculine energy from baby swallow that passed. He's like, we can call him Bert for short for the purposes of this. Okay, Bert, thank you so much. I hear actually Bert, well, he shows me him really, really small and still singing. So still chirping away, singing. So I see him initially like this, he's taking me back in the timeline. Shows me hatched in the nest, singing, loving everything, loving brothers and sisters. So there were male and female birds that were born in that clutch, the clutch. And I just see him singing. And then, so 2 things I also see. One, or that he's also sharing with me, is one, he's not the one that fell out of the nest.
Yeah, I thought that, because when I asked about, is that I asked if the one that was out of the nest, because I was worried maybe it had fallen out again, it had died, and that's why I could only see 4, but I kept going, no, that one was still alive. Yeah,
that one, I hear that one thrived, and it thrived because of you. And that one was female, that landed on your shoulder and all that was a female. Wait, was that last year? That was this year. Which one, when did it land on your shoulder?
Yeah. This has all happened within 24 hours.
Yeah. Okay. So the one that was on your shoulder was a female, and thank you. All I hear is thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh. From even Bert, because Bert's like, that's how it was. That was an opportunity for you to believe that your touch would not harm. Make sense? Okay. So, all right. So then what Bert shares with me, which is so interesting, because when we were talking about it, I was getting this already as well, but I didn't trust it, of course, right? Because I hadn't formally connected. So, but what I see him getting food from his mother really early on, and it doesn't work in his belly. And I don't feel really good in my intestines. Actually, it's lower than my stomach. My intestine, and actually I'm getting really, you know how like before you get sick, you vomit, this gets really, you can start to swallow, like there's a lot of saliva. I'm getting a lot of like swallowing and saliva and all of that. And my intestines themselves are starting to churn and they don't feel really well, which then in turn is causing my heart to feel like it's getting pushed and I can't feel like I can breathe.
So he
So
was sick.
say what?
He was sick.
And actually what I hear him say is something was not right when he born. That's what he said. Something wasn't right when he was born. And he just wasn't, what I'm hearing him. And now he's like, he's letting that go. Thank you. That did not feel good. Now he's saying, so he's like having me take a step back and he's like, something wasn't right when I was born and I was never able to accept food. Is there anything about that you want to share? And so he said, so what he shows me is that in the small amount of time that he had with his brothers and sisters, still singing, still wanting food, still taking what his mother gave him, never really feeling good, but it's all that he knew. And he still had a wonderful time, I hear him saying, being in the nest with his brothers and sisters and mom coming and food and the whole experience. He still enjoyed the experience. I hear him say, even though we would look at that as crap. And he says that word. He actually says shit. Then he goes to shite because I'm in Scotland. But he's like, even though people may think that it was a bad turn, I hear him say I still had a great time with everybody. And that is his lesson.
And that almost answers the leading question I had to you after that, which is, because then it brings up all these things, is yes, I do believe that animals have contracts with us and we're all learning all the time, all animals. And you know, I was watching one of Danielle's videos where she talks about like the complexity of that, because you're talking about every animal having so many relationships with so many people, all to varying degrees. And that's part of my question of the wider thing. So yes, the bird's teaching me a lesson, thank you. And it's funny because Gary and I said this, and now Gary sort of thought about it. He's like, oh, you know, for me it's absolutely amazing because where they are, so they're facing the house, they're in under the balcony that's facing the house, so they can see the glass doors, and so they see some reflection, but basically they can see nothing but brickwork, the house, and then the driveway, which is all brickwork, because they're facing inward. So imagine that moment when they drop out of the nest, and then you've seen photos of where I live. They've got this 360 panoramic view of fields and skies and trees, and you know, that moment where they go from just looking down on the ground, which is just brickwork, to all of that. It's, you know, it must be incredible. So you know, for that baby, but I suppose he wouldn't have known any difference. But my wider question is, they're here to help us, yes, agreed, understood, and thank you, but what, they must be there also for their own purpose. Like there must be more to it than just teaching people lessons. Like they get something out of it, they get the life experience. You know, do they have contracts with each other? Or is it simply about the joy of living in a physical world? And yes, we can help these idiots while we're here, or what?
I'm asking him, Bert, if he can talk about it. So there's a lot there. Okay, so I'm asking him. Okay, so first of all, it goes back to what we've learned, what we've experienced as being animal communicators and everything, is that he's like, I already achieved unconditional love. I'm already here because as a vessel of unconditional love, it's not that I I don't have lessons to learn. I have experiences to have, is what I
Okay.
can say. It's a bit different for animals and for trees and for flowers, like the natural world. We are the only species, humans. He's saying this, we are the only species that keeps ourselves apart from everything and everyone else. So we are all, and he's tough from his perspective. He's like, we are all, and he shows me like the whole big work, you know, Gaia, everything about trees, all that stuff. We are all here to help you come back to where you first started and being integrated with all of us. So yes, we are here and we're having experiences of being a bird, of being a jaguar, of being a tree, of being a flower. Like we're having all these great experiences because, oh my gosh, look how much joy there is in all of that. And it's just kind of fun for us as entities to have these different bodies, and he's moving his wings and being a butterfly, or like being stationary with a tree, but moving, it's, you know, all that. He said that because that's just joy. We're already at this level. So it's hard he goes, it's hard to share with a human what that feels like, because we're still trying to help you get there. Because we're still, I hear him say, and it's not accusatory, it's not judgmental when he says this. He's like, we're still, you humans are still mired in this separateness. You're still mired in this, all the things, the human construct. And he's reminding me of a session I had yesterday with a woman who was so worried about the ethics of something, and her animal stepped in and said, ethics are a human construct. And the only thing that's important is love. And that's where we're trying to go. And that's what they're trying to share with us. So what he's also saying as part of his lesson was, my body didn't form the way that it could function in this world, but I also needed to experience that. What does that feel like? And how do you still find joy? Or what is joy like when you're in a situation like that? And it's still joy. There is no filter joy, less than joy, just joy. Hence the singing that was showing me, and still is like chirping in my right ear.
It's funny because when, I don't know if you hear birds when they're being fed, because as soon as, and let's be fair to the barn swallows, Daddy pulls his weight as well. It's just like non-stop. I mean, literally they were just, but they're just like, like as soon as parents appear, and like sometimes when I'd open the door, they go, oh no, that's not mummy, and then they'll shut up, and that's when I got that further on. You know, because just any sort of movement, they'd all be like, okay. So if I'm to understand that, they are here also for their own experiences.
Yes. Yes.
Do they have, well, no, they would have no need for soul contracts with each other then, because that's all, again, us learning about what is. They just live minute by minute, second by second.
Yeah. So you had asked a question to some degree earlier when off camera, and he's bringing that back to me. What are animals like? Say you had said something about like the animals that are out there in the wild that never have encounters with humans. And yes, we can connect to the diva, the overarching, all that stuff. He says, so what he shows me is animals keep this baseline. Everything in the natural world keeps this baseline of joy along, like he says it just like that. And humans, we're operating down lower vibrational frequency. Suffering. He's having fun with you now. He's like, low self-esteem, not good enough, like all this, right? And so because they're holding this baseline, whether or not me, Julie, you, Kate, actually have an interaction with said polar bear on the northern slope of Alaska, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, because they're all working together. They're actually, but however, there are what he says, mercenaries. He's being a little cheeky. Mercenaries like Bert, Lucas, Sally,
the ones that,
Nyla, swooping in to like grab a human by the hand, and it's that's their role in this is so cool. So I didn't realize this. The animals, the natural world, there's like groups of those that work with humans. So like we know, like I think we know Nyla's been with you together in lifetimes before, right? And Sally too.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. I'm pretty sure Nyla has.
Yeah. And Lucas, I know too, has been with me in previous lifetimes. He's scratching his bed at my feet right now. So if you can hear that, sorry. So there's groups, and that's what their role is, to swoop in and grab us. And say, come on, come with us, and working with us to uplift us. And those are humans of us that are of an older soul age, have gone through experiences for thousands of years, versus souls that are newer. We're the ones that are more receptive to all of this type of work, in an effort to also help those that are younger souls to come along as we continue to raise our vibration, particularly in this age of Aquarius, all this type of stuff. That's pretty cool. Does that make sense?
Very interesting. Yes. I don't like the word mercenary, but I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, I don't either. It's just like, he's like, what other, this is where I find it so fascinating, right? That our own language is a human construct. Our own language can be so incredibly limited. It can be turned to get against us, hence on our best.
I wonder what the word mercenary actually
Oh,
means.
yeah, you should. Yeah.
We assume it's law, don't war.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah. And I'll say too, while you look that up, the other thing that's really interesting about language is that many times when I'm in a session, just like Bert did earlier, they say a word or say something that is really wrong grammar, or the word is mispronounced, because for them it's like, y'all put yourself in this box, and it's like language has to be expanded. So yeah.
Mercenary, or soldier of fortune, a hired gun, a private individual who joins a military conflict for personal profit. So in a sense that does make sense, because it's not a government organized, like it's like an individual going, I'm going to do this, I am serving a certain purpose to do something. Forget the wages bit, but
I was going to look up the etymology of mercenary.
I don't know how you spell
Mercenary. There we go.
Entomology, there we go. Etymology.
There, okay. So the origin from Latin, which is mercus or merced, which is reward.
Now that's interesting you say reward, because here it says wages or pay, but yes, it's reward. So they choose to perform these actions for their own, satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Bert.
Mm-hmm.
So I have another question.
He's doing this. He's like, you're welcome. Spread the word. Spread the
So I have another question, totally different, but on this theme.
Yeah.
Because if you can go just for a few minutes longer.
Mm-hmm.
So I was talking to my neighbour, the farmer. I was just had a lovely conversation with her, and it came up about, she knows I'm a complete weirdo, but she's fascinated by it all. So she's very close to her animals, but obviously she's still a farmer, and so she has horrible decisions to make. But she said that she doesn't take any of it lightly, and she hates sending them to slaughter, but she knows that they've had a nice life and that she does her best for them, that they've had a good life, etc., etc., etc. So I was saying about the lessons, and she said, well, what about animals that suffer abuse? So we both know that all these things serve a purpose. So whether it's somebody witnessing that abuse, but I suppose the question is, maybe this is actually a human question, but I'd be interested to hear what either Bert or any other animal or David or even your guides have to say about, there's a person who commits the abuse, because I don't know anybody like that. I can't ask them what they get out of it ultimately. Like, do they get to a point where they feel remorse and they learn something? Is what's in it for them?
The human?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm asking, like, I'm not fully I didn't really disconnect from Bert either, but so he's going to weigh in as well as guides, I feel. I'm asking, oh, hey, okay. And my guardian angel, whom I just met, by the way. We can talk about that in a different episode. here's what I'm getting is that when a human is the abuser,
Mhm.
there is a contract from a previous life. So we were at all points in time, we have experienced being abused, not necessarily as animals, but as humans. We've had experiences of being abused, being rejected, being all the things, right? We've also had experiences of being the perpetrator in those situations. How severe? I don't know. That's not the point. The point is we've had experiences of both sides in an effort to create compassion as we move forward in our lifetime so that we can continue to stay then in this sense of compassion, caring for at one-ment instead of atonement, but at one-ment, all the things. We as humans have to, for some reason, because we're lower vibration, have to experience all this. So what Bert actually is saying, he's like, the humans who are the abusers are learning something specific about what it means to inflict pain on something else. Why are you inflicting the pain? Where's the pain yourself? All this type of thing, because they're either working through something that's already happened in a past life and they're getting ready for the next life. So it's all part of this. It's not as simple as like this one moment in time, right? It's this across the thing. There was something else that he wanted to say. And the animals, again, the mercenary, but from a mercy perspective, the ones that volunteer to go through that, as you know, like when I'm thinking of, there's an organization that, we're part of the Animal Communication Collective. We've worked with this organization called the Animal Pad. They just rescued over 400 plus dogs, I think, in a shelter in Mexico. And these dogs they're in a terrible physical state, but their joy has not diminished. They're still happy, tails wagging, all that stuff. So it's like we can take the physical, whatever you give to us, we can take it. It's hard for us. It's hard for humans to understand it. And for those that rescue us, there's lessons in there too. So us being in this mercenary role, it teaches the abuser something that they're supposed to learn. It teaches the rescuer something they're supposed to learn, probably the foster. Like there's all these different things. Yeah.
Okay. And I get that actually, because the sort of question was, it started with why, well, because we talk about the food chain, and I had said to my farmer, well, those animals choose, they know what's going to happen at a soul level anyway. And then like, well, what, it was a question about abuse, but I guess you're right, you can't in a lifetime as an abuser, there may come a time in an abuser's life where they realize what or feel differently about that, possibly just before death or at death. But then actually, as you say, if you are an abuser and then you come back in another life as the abused, you then have that experience to go, oh, that's not a nice thing to do. Interesting.
Yeah. Bert just had me burp.
Ask him what the lesson is in that.
Well, it was release. Yeah. That's a heavy topic he's saying too. So let's just release. Plus he's also being cheeky because of what he was born with and how that stuff didn't actually. Yeah, there's a whole little.
It's a very emotive subject. The reason I told my farm, I told my neighbor about about them choosing to come down is because for someone who sends animal to slaughter, it's nice for her to know that the animals know exactly what's happening, and they choose to serve us in a different way, shall we say, because they know they're coming to be food. But there's also the aspect that Abraham Hicks says about animals, and that is that humans, we put these layers of humanness over what the animal is experiencing, and it's almost certainly not what they are experiencing. That's not to say that we shouldn't respect them and take care of them and all of that, but our feelings and emotions around the food chain, around death, around all that, are completely different to what animals experience. And also my very old favorite is, when a life becomes less than joyful, an animal will simply leave.
Mhm. Yes. And I want to caution, Bert wants to caution, there's humans out there that be like, I didn't make my animal's life joyful and that's why they left me. No, no, no. No.
Point.
Yeah.
And actually that expression was particularly about illness. That's where
Yes.
that comes from, is that when your animal has had enough, we tend to euthanize them before it gets to that stage, but it is reassuring to know that an animal will just leave if life becomes less than joyful, i.e. sickness, rather than, in fact, sickness is the only thing that applies to, I would imagine.
As to why they choose to leave?
Yeah. I mean, do animals die of broken heart? I don't know. That's probably a bit deep.
That's a good question. We should ask another time.
We
Yeah.
should. We need to go because Julie's bristling with busyness today. But actually, we've got lots of stuff coming up that we won't share now. But I just, we've both been thinking about, we want to maybe go through themes because stuff comes up for us, and we want to do more of this as well, doing a sort of Abraham, Jerry, Est, and Abraham with me, Julie, and the guys, because I'm full of questions, but I'm too close because I spend so much time ruminating it. I'm not sure I get clean answers, whereas I just throw them at Julie. She has no time for her ego to get involved, so she can come up with the answers.
Hey,
So
come on. I know nothing. I don't even remember what I said.
so thank you, Julie. Well, you can see us out because I saw us in.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, so just kind of piggybacking on what you said, if you have any thoughts, questions, or ideas for themes that you'd like us to discuss, please leave them in the chat below. You can also leave comments for us on Instagram and Facebook. You'll notice that things are starting to change just a little bit. We're trying to add a little intro to all these videos. Kate's added a voiceover. So we're moving some things in some different directions. So please, please, please give us your feedback. We really, really love to hear from you. Also, make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you're notified when a new episode drops. We try to do one every single Friday, and share this with your friends because we're also trying to grow our reach so that people can find us as well, and we can make more light and be more than two humans being, not just us, but everybody. Let's get everyone involved. So thank you so much for being here. We hope the lessons and the messages from Bert, who's still right here chirping away, resonated with you. Let us know what you thought, and we will see you next week here on Making Light, Two Humans Being. Thanks for being here.